Hey guys, it's Matt. About 1 minute and a half before I start reading chapter 29. Very important though. When I say, guys, in my opinion, of course, the world isn't real or isn't very real, I soften it a bit. Many of you, it's like lip service, like you don't really believe that I'm being literal. I'm being very literal. This world has become an absolute joke. The reason we do things like some would still scream at me, scream at me, and call them screen exercises like Sunday's free voice. The reason we go back there into the bog a bit, okay, what is the Not Nilk's tactics in presenting this event in this Westfield High School where kids were putting the faces of students on the naked bodies of who knows what? What's the point? What is Not Nilk up to? So if this is a, quote, Amish classroom, where there's different ages in one classroom, different grades, different graduation schedules, okay, we return to the bog for several reasons. But one reason to do it for the, quote, somebody ready to graduate is to see, well, maybe you haven't been looking at these events as long as I have, over 14 years now, but it's the same script every time. So, okay, we do the freevoice.io and say there's something, of course, not quite right with this. My hypothesis was they took a real event and they're now using it with these people in the high school are mouthpieces for the legislation that they eventually want to put forth. But of course, it plays out the same way. Okay, I got an email, and thank you to the person that's a good friend that sent me the email. But here's a picture of the mother of the student that was harmed with Joe Biden. And the mother of the student that was harmed that appeared on CNN is related in some way to the Israeli Mossad and these connections. And okay, here we go again. One of the reasons we return to the bog for the graduate level truther is the same stuff plays out over and over and over. It's ridiculous at this point. I can't tell you how many events. Oh, we found this woman's face was in another event, and this person was a catastrophe thespian over here, and they were also a catastrophe thespian in Boston. And oh, do you really think the truthers, we just are such sleuths? Or obviously the dark reality, whatever these minions are, then they put it out. They want us to see that. They want us to find these connections that make the story illegitimate in our eyes. As usual, it will never be enough to be illegitimate in our friends' eyes. This can't keep happening over and over and over again. No group is that sophisticated. This world is an absolute joke. So in summary, one reason to return to the bog is those that have been in school or now going into high school, now going into college. You'll say to yourself that we've been through this so many times that this is a joke. There's no way this could play out the same way over and over. I think it's to cut all ties with this world, to cut all Jacob Marley chains. I do think it's necessary to see it for what it is, like a bozo show. It's easy to cut ties with it if it's such a buffoon and joke presentation all the time, at least from the outer screen perspective, which is not the same, in my opinion, as the natural world. Finally, there are a few sections in this chapter many of you have heard before. For example, you'll recognize comparing the dark reality to Lefty of Sesame Street, how Lefty tricks Ernie. I did present that before. Remember, the book has to stand alone. If there's an earlier presentation where I make a note and say this has to be in my final book, kind of my explanation of how the dark reality works, then it has to be in there. But somebody will still leave a comment, repetitive. I've heard this before. Really? You have heard it before. Let's just say I'm right about half of this, and the other half's total horseshit. If I'm right about half, that how there's something dark here and how the dark reality works, if even a quarter of this is correct, it's probably worth repeating. But Matt, why are you so defensive? If you've been attacked by as many trolls over the years as me, you'd be defensive too. I'm sorry. Chapter 29. Bullshit backstories abound in this earthly place if you research anything important or try to find out why something works the way it does here. The Goddess of Freedom thing on top of the U.S. Capitol dome is, of course, not what Wikipedia says it is. The Washington Monument has nothing to do with honoring George Washington. An Egyptian phallus sitting on top of a symbolic vagina is a strange dedication to a man, don't you think? Well, unless there were certain escapades associated with that man that we don't know about that would, say, put Dirk Diggler to shame. Maybe there are. Bullshit backstories will always pop up when one dives into the weeds in order to uncover certain mysteries about the world. If it's a little strange or occult, this reality will never just flat out tell you the answer. Everything is shrouded in bullshit. The band Tool tells you they use the symbol of the 7-pointed star because they thought it was cool, and they say many police badges are 7-pointed stars. Well, that makes a lot of sense. The 7-pointed star, beyond being featured prominently in most seasons of Game of Thrones, has a very long and strange occult lineage, even related to strange things like elven magic, whatever that means. Go do some research on what the stoned hedge is, and you'll get an all-over-the-place litany of explanations, ranging from, per the very legitimate, important British Museum, it's an ancient ceremonial burial ground and cremation center, to, of course, an astronomical clock of some type that highlights the solstice, to a bunch of truthers yelling out, "It's fucking fake! It's fake! It's that's right. Oh yeah, we saw those pictures in the truth community of cranes, black and white pictures of cranes propping up the stoned hedge, and of course we caught them. We sleuths, boy, they didn't want those pictures to get out, did they? And I know it's Stonehenge. What the hell's a henge? To me, it's the stoned hedge, like a bush." And remember how we started off this chapter. There are repeating themes that give away a fake joke reality. And when you go to research per the British Museum, the stoned hedge, oh no, they're saying the same thing. It's a repeating theme. These little primitives had to go get the blocks and the stones from hundreds of kilometers away and transport them. Oh no, it's the same exact script of all the other megalithic sites. I can't take this bullshit anymore. Go research the Eye of Providence used in the Great Seal of the United States on the back of the dollar bill. That's some creepy shit. But remember, the point of this section is to remind you that what it really is, pause, is never what the research books say it is. I had to put that pause in there. I don't drop ISISes like Bill Clinton does. Per the Eye of Providence, they tell us it's supposed to be God. It's supposed to be God watching over America. That's the funniest bullshit backstory of all time. Most Wikipedia articles that explain important topics are an insult to people's intelligence. We in the Great Unwashed will never be told the real reason why the fictional character of Columbia, pictured as a woman, was so important to the corporation of the United States in the 1800s. A bunch of research that'll waste your time will show some people that it's linked to Christopher Columbus, which is really absurd. To me, if anything, it's the other way around. The man, or whatever this character was that sailed across the ocean, to me is probably called Columbus, which, of course, Columbus, because of what they intend to honor with the name itself, something that we proletariat will likely never understand. Who cares? Do you want to understand it? I don't give a shit either. Don't even bother researching any of this stuff today on the web. All you'll find are endless fields of bullshit backstories explaining a history that's been converted into zeros and ones so it can be conveniently changed daily. This brings us to the biggest lie phrase in truth research. You've heard it many times. Don't just trust me. Do your own research. Do your own research. Anybody that ever spouted thou art a villain. What a joke and pointless practice that is today. Because everything spawns from the same Ministry of Information, Whopper computer. Do your own research. Unless you're prepared to send me to, say, the Transylvania Reading Room. It's a library in a cave where you can get books from 15, 16, 1700. It shows you the Inquisition, real techniques. Unless you can send me to the Transylvania Reading Room, everywhere else is not milk. It's a waste of time to go do your own research. Well, Matt, where'd you get all this information? I didn't do any research in any of this. Just observed. Didn't read shit. I don't read these ancient esoteric tomes. I've said it's all a waste of time. Just observed our adversary, come to logical conclusions, and get in touch with inner knowing that has a connection to the part of us that's not here. I didn't do any research in presenting this book. Remember the formula that we recently came up with that relates how hard the not milk is pushing a certain story? It's an inverse to how true it is. We could compose another formula here related to what we're talking about. We could call it like the do your own research formula, using variables that represent the importance of the topic being researched. In this case, it's not important to a real spiritual being, but let's just say the Eye of Providence. It's important to them. You know what? It ain't important to us. Just go with it. Let's just say that's an important topic to research. so that would get a high factor for the variable, and then related to how new or how current the news source or the source of information is providing the research. Here's an example. You understand where I'm going with this. A digital piece of information provided by the AP, for example, is completely useless. Digital, it could have been changed or faked 2 minutes ago. It was probably adjusted overnight by the Wikipedia Chad. That's useless. Those AP Thomson Reuters trolls work right inside the main ministry headquarters. And then the information's coming to you current in digital, completely useless per our formula. On the other end, the Transylvania Reading Room, things like that, would score high on our formula. So, or maybe even something much more simple, coming across a real, quote, rare books room in an old forgotten library in Indiana that has books from the late 1800s. That would score pretty high in our formula. If you dust off some of those books, there could be some real truth in there. Even so, our skeptic hat must always remain tight and fully on. This dark influence that's here, it ain't new. It's been here a long, long time. The first time I looked at the ridiculous backstory of the Taj Mahal was about 5 years ago. I was trying to find out what lies they were telling about its initial construction. Wikipedia said 25,000 artisans were 25,000 artisans were brought in to build it, whatever that means. But that's not the point. When I looked at the Taj Mahal's Wikipedia about 2 years ago, it said 20,000 artisans. It had dropped 5,000 artisans. Guys, this is important. Let's not gloss this over. Let's do the My Cousin Vinny prosecuting attorney. Put your hands out. Same model car and tire. 25,000 artisans. 3 years later, go to look at it, drops to 20,000 artisans. Now, here's the point. Does anybody really think there was any new major academic research at Columbia University, let's bring that word back, or anywhere else in the Ivy League, where they went and re-looked at the construction of the Taj Mahal, and then they went out to Wikipedia and said, per the findings of all the research we've been over the last few years with Dr. Bromenheimer at Brown University, we need to we recommend that Wikipedia, you change it. We only think now there were 20,000 artists. Nobody did any research in the time between I originally looked at it and when I looked at it again. Reality just flows and shifts. It's a not-milk tactic to confuse the shit out of everybody. It does this across the board with everything. It's another symptom of a fake world. But I must be clear here. I'm not saying this is a Mandela effect. I'm not going out to trigger anybody. It's not always a Mandela effect. I'm just saying it's not like reality shifted and there were 5,000 less people building the damn domes in the 1600s in lower India. I'm saying just Wikipedia, it just changed. For basically, my best explanation, or the closest to the truth would be for no reason at all, other than the not-milk plays its games with people to muddy history, to muddy absolutely everything. I'm not saying history actually changed and it's a Mandela effect. I'm just saying, I don't know, the bot just rewrote the number one night, basically for no reason. I think it does this across the board to slowly and incrementally move everybody away from true history. Okay, I have to correct the verbiage there. I used for no reason, no legitimate reason related to trying to keep history accurate. That's what I'm saying it has its good reason for muddying the waters. Of course, we understand the not-milk's reason. I don't mean for no reason. I mean for no legitimate reason trying to pin down a more accurate historical record. Of course, it doesn't give a shit about that. It just wants to confuse that. You see, if you're a dark element out to devolve a society, confusing the shit out of people in every way is paramount to your mission. Maybe next year, Wikipedia will tell me that the Taj Mahal was built by one man, one guy in a loincloth, maybe a distant relative to the guy that supposedly built the Coral Castle. We know now that the not-milk's outer ring of reality needs to generate conspiracy. What that is nothing more than bait on a hook placed before real people like you and me, hoping for a bite. In today's world, considering the enormity of its success, it has certainly taught itself to fish. It needs to draw in the beings who supply the energy in this reality. And guess what? That ain't Alex Baldwin. It's you and me. When you turn your attention upon it, you shake its slimy tentacle and give it energy. Regarding our group, it does this with conspiracy generation that gets our attention like fish treats. It was infused with so much energy on the days following the JFK Two Asses in a Nation that perhaps it became a Louch heroin addict. As we choose to dive into all the conspiracy topics that it generates, most have multiple embedded layers that tempt us with different discoveries, all of them illegitimate. There are no beneficial answers for ourselves in the endless examination of its mysteries. That's what we do in this community. The endless examination of its mysteries. That is the antithesis doing that of worry about yourself. It's the antithesis of worry about yourself philosophy, examining its endless mysteries, because it's a generation machine like Lucy in the Chocolate Factory. Again, it's methods of generating all of this every week. Something new, weird pops up for us to follow. Even what I did on Free Voice on Sunday, all of this can only be described as supernatural. I don't have another word for it. We don't need to understand it further. How it embeds all this conspiracy and how it lays down all of it with the minion level being successful in its implementation is beyond anything we can ever understand. It loves nothing more than when we use pedestrian or toy box explanations to try to understand how it pulls so much off. Let me revise that. It just loves nothing more than when we even try to understand it. That's why it lays down its yellow breadcrumbs. That's why it leaves its mistakes on purpose, so we never get off the treadmill that we choose to get on. As long as we're on the treadmill, oh, Matt, we can figure it out. That is the game. It plays. There is nothing more important in truth pursuit or understanding this whole thing than if you are trying to figure a certain aspect out, you are playing its game. I do return to the weeds from time to time, or what I did on Free Voice, or what you would call the bog, or screen exercises from time to time, just so it sinks in that the number of times we go through the same exercise will get you off the treadmill. Like all things here that seem to be alive, the outer screen, the ring or not milk, it needs to eat, right? It seems to be alive because it seems to always want to perpetuate itself. Is it the same as it was in 1970? I don't think so. It does this, it seems, via a specific frequency of energy that it uses or it feeds from that is tied to human emotion and tied to a human response to all that it places in front of what they call the human being on its screen. It needs a response. It starves without that response. The conspiracy is a means to an end in order to get the food it needs to live and grow. It's that simple. Every time a real being turns its attention to the outer screen, it gets something from that. That is so important. Let that really sink in. It's that simple. Every time a real being turns its attention in some way to the outer screen, now maybe it's just a glance as you walk by a television, maybe that's not good enough, a glance, but you understand the point I'm making. If what is on that screen elicits an emotional response, then it gets something out of it. It is that simple. Well, Matt, how do you know for sure? I don't know for sure, but think about it. How else could it work? For talking to those who see through its presentation. The people listening to my voice can see through its vaudeville act. The people like my friend Tony and your neighbors, they don't see through it, of course, so they'll never understand what I'm saying. But how else could it work? To us, those who see certain things, it's always making what we would call a presentation. It's not legitimate. It's Russia, the bad guy. It's Ukraine. It's Gaza. It's debt crisis. It's this and that. It's the injustice to certain minority group. It's always making a presentation. That presentation is contrived. It's illegitimate. We can see how falsified everything is. Now, there's only two reasons in my limited understanding why it would make these sorts of endless presentations. One is it must get something when you turn your attention to it. The old term Louch, there was no better term, and why should we replace it? Fine, it works. It must get something from the attention of real beings. But also remember, it's a role player here. If you turn your attention to it, then you are not doing part two, the work. You're not doing worry about yourself activities if your attention is on it. I literally think it's this simple, guys. It is a half page. That's why truthers don't like this channel very much, because what they do is refocus our attention on all the bullshit yellow breadcrumbs. I go back to it from time to time, but I try to pull us back out of it, don't I? For a while, I never really understood this particular dynamic that I'm about to talk about. I understand it more now. There will be people here that listen to this message, basically the same message now I've been putting out for 3 years. I'm trying to consolidate it into a book that's far too long now. I will chop 40% out if anything ever goes to print. But these same people I know will then go off to Tartaria YouTube channels or to Mudflood YouTube channels. They do both. And I understand it a little bit more now. At first, like, well, why would you go do that if you're listening to my message? Because they're not quite sure who's right. Or it's an addiction in some way. They have to go back to do the Tartaria or the ancient architecture. It's an addiction of sorts, or they're not quite sure that it is as simple as the half page. They're not quite ready to separate. They're not quite ready to cut their own chains. Therefore, if this message does become repetitive, it's repetitive because certain people at different levels in the Amish classroom may need to hear the message reiterated. Every so often, somebody, Matt, you're being repetitive. Are you ready to graduate? Go graduate and get lost if you're ready to graduate. Some graduates are here just to hear a sane voice and to have people in the comments that see the world the way they do. They've already graduated, yet, some of my jokes work, some fail. Again, I appreciate the graduates that are still here, but if you're a graduate, don't make snarky comments that something's being repetitive. They're all different types of people here, people at different levels, one classroom. Regarding conspiracy research in general, with these topics that we all know, it's time to move the F on. For any particular topic we investigate, it does not matter which side is correct. See, that's one of the keys to finally moving on. We see it doesn't matter to be correct. It only matters from Not Nilk's perspective that we try to be correct. It doesn't matter what actually happened on the ground or at the school or in the mall or what happened in Westfield High School via Sunday's video. It doesn't matter what's real, what part is fake. It doesn't matter what the shape of the earth is. We can no longer take its bait. To think that those prior topics matter is to take its bait. The world is so strange, nothing is off the table at this point in pondering what is actually going on if those of us that want to continue to ponder it. It doesn't really mean anything in terms of the part two, the work we need to do for our spiritual selves. But I will continue to ponder how the Not Nilk really operates. It's very interesting to me. I don't think I'll ever go back into the bog. I don't think it will ever become the addiction it was for me, say 10 years ago. Real people are tempted to always find the answer out there, when the only legitimate question that requires a response is the question about oneself. Oh no. What now? Mr. Nolan, it's God. He says we should have girls at Weldon. Sorry. If we debate these topics with our normie friends, futile is the best descriptor. How 99% of the people around us will never give our argument one tiny bit of credibility gives reality itself away, and it's a symptom of a fake world in some sense. In determining why this is, if we want to continue that pondering, there are no explanations anymore that can be considered too strange. Nothing is off the table. E.T. flew by in a basket with Elliot. Nothing is off the table because things are so strange as of 2023 going into 2024. We never thought we would be in this situation. We wouldn't have even believed it 10 years ago. When arguing with your friend Tony or with your Aunt Ginny, it's possible, like I've talked about, that both realities may exist at the same time. Maybe that's why they never come around. The Ship of Fools could literally be, in a sense, at least from the outer screen's perspective, a different reality. Or somehow the screen or the outer ring has somehow been able to accomplish this sort of phenomenon. If, at least from the screen's reality, it's different between Tony, your Aunt Ginny, you, and me, where we would be, of course, seeing the same thing. At least, again, not for the things that are close to your heart-centered reality bubble. This is maybe possible for the things that reside in its domain, that come from the outer ring of reality, that come from the screen or the Not Nilk. A presentation of a buzzed cauldron, or Dancing with the Stars, or Masked Singer, what they say about See the Me, or things about Teismism, and whatever comes from that might not be seen the same way between myself and my friend Tony. And from it, you can't say it's literally different because it's still coming from the screen. But there's no other way to say that his reality may literally be different when examining the screen. That is a possibility that I continue not only to keep on the table, but it has more and more credibility each month that goes by in the strange world. There's almost no other way to explain it other than to fall back and say download or radio station or frequency. But is that any different? If my friend Tony's on a download, a radio station, or a frequency, then his reality is different than mine. It just comes back to the same place. It's really the same thing. And if you believe this strange explanation is actually on the table, then I'm sorry to trigger some people, the Mandela effect does come into play. Like I've said to a lot of the community here that doesn't see the Mandela effect, if you believe the world is strange and evolved to a place you can't imagine or you can't fathom, or you're in some way attached to an old world where it shouldn't be that 1 in 10 families have a child that doesn't know what it is, even though it can go into the bathroom by itself. If the world is that strange to you, then I've said many times, then you're Mandela affected because you're attached to, you're not flowing as the world is flowing. The world is changing or flowing so unnaturally, I believe it produces symptoms called the Mandela effect. I believe it's all related. So if you think the world's strange, then in some way you're Mandela affected. It's not. It comes through different symptoms, like a Kit Kat dash or whatever. Then the Not Milk wants us focused on those things. Small, irrelevant, seemingly manifestations. Life was like a box of chocolates. If you build it, he will come. Or it's just a little movie lines, Matt. It's all irrelevant. That's what they want you to believe. No, it's all part of the same craziness that's going on here. That's very clear to me. Many of you I know disagree. It wants us focusing on the Mandela effect trivial. So, in my opinion, so we don't see how one symptom of the weird things going on is related to all the weird things going on. It's all related, in my opinion. And then we can continue to ponder, which is a waste of time. Is this the natural process of how the earth should unfold in this moment under the stars? Or are they playing games with their buttons and levers, which are causing all these? Who cares? It doesn't. Who cares? It's not a worry about your self-activity. The greatest news of all time is no matter how the world melts down, you're still allowed to do your part 2 work. It doesn't interfere with your worry about your self-activities, what you believe to do for your spiritual whole, the reason you're here. The Not Milk, it's 1 or 2 sentences, tries to impede your understanding of who you really are and the reason you're here. I do struggle with one type of example that I can't seem to reconcile. If we always say, well, it's our choice, if we take the bait, focus our attention back on the screen, we always have the ability to do the part 2 work and not take its breadcrumbs. What if there's a real person in Gaza and they got the bottom of their apartment building blown out, or whatever, a natural disaster in Turkey just over a year ago, the earthquake, and you are, that is something that completely, okay, you're out in the alleyways, you're out in the street, or is it that one can argue that does keep one from doing part 2, the work. Okay, that I can't reconcile that because the Not Milk always, to me, seems to operate behind a trick. We always are, and most of us are very convinced that you have to take the bait. It can't come into your personal reality bubble and throw you down on the table and force you. That's why it operates behind a trick, right? You have to go engage with it. You have to shake the hands of its slimy tentacle. Well, what if there's a real person in Gaza that just got the bottom of their apartment building blown out? This is something that's still hard for me to reconcile because that's not operating behind a trick. In everything we've observed, in terms of at least its focus on us, it's always playing a trick to get us to do something. Why does anything play a trick? To get that person or that entity being tricked to do something that the trickster cannot do for itself or cannot do directly to the focus of the trick. Okay, then again, if something blows up in Gaza West Bank via what is going on now as a news story bot, that violates its need to operate behind a trick, does it not? Look at the stories regarding Satan or a deal with the devil. Now, am I an expert on every single one? No, but don't they have a common element that the person has to do the deal with the devil, whether it be Bob Dylan's deal with the chief commander, or the devil went down to Georgia, he was looking for a stole to steal, or run, boy, run. Guess what? Johnny, who plays that fiddle, he didn't have to do no fiddle competition against the devil, did he? He didn't have to do it. The devil said, I didn't make you fiddle against me. Oh, Johnny won. No, Johnny didn't win shit. He thought, the devil got exactly what he wanted. We've talked about that. Johnny gets a golden fiddle, whatever. I'm the best there's ever been. No, you lost, buddy. You got tricked to take the golden fiddle. It ruined your life. You became a pimp. Sorry. Johnny lost. Okay, we'll talk about that some other time. The Charlie Daniels band. The devil doesn't go in and just grab somebody and throw them in the trunk. There's a deal, right? What's the difference between that and the trickster we talk about regarding the not nilk? Well, there's no deal if somebody's apartment building's blown out. I need to sit here for 5 minutes and think about this. Here's another one related to the 27 Club. Robert Johnson and the Crossroads. He supposedly, the legend and lore, he wasn't very good. Something happened, went off somewhere to some crossroads. That crossroads is kind of a repeating kind of script in the lore of doing the deal with the devil. I don't understand the full lineage of the term crossroads, but that is very significant. Then he comes back with guitar riffs, the likes of which nobody's ever seen before. Well, he dies at age 27, and we don't have the same stories about Amy Winehouse and Kurt Cobain, but, this 27 Club, it implies is a similar deal with the devil done. The point, what we're talking about here, most importantly, is that Robert Johnson wasn't just minding his own business per the way these stories are presented in Not Nilk reality, and walking down the street, and the devil came up in a monster truck and just threw him in the trunk, and he had no say. No, he was lured into a deal, right? So forget Gaza. How about all the other ways the Not Nilk has thrown people into the trunk where they didn't have a say? A kid drafted at age 18 to go off to Vietnam, dies 2 weeks after being in Vietnam, or somebody coming off onto the beaches of Omaha and Utah Beach, like the opening scene in Saving Private Ryan, and is mowed down by a German machine gun. That's not the same as somebody dying in a car accident, or there's a lot of ways people can die randomly every week. That's not the same, because the Not Nilk forced them into the situation. The kid drafted at age 18 is supposed to say, I'm going to go to jail instead, and have the wherewithal to not go to Vietnam. No, the Not Nilk forced the situation, did not play a trick at all, which led to their death. Okay, I got to go away and go get a drink or something, come back, and then I don't think we'll get to the bottom of it here, but this is something that's always bothered me. Where was the trick it needed to play on the kid that it sent to Vietnam against the kid's will? Okay, I sat here for a long time. I don't think this is going to be solved today, but at least this back-end discussion can get us on the right path. That, and looking to some of your good comments to make sure wherever I take this is on the right path. So I'm throwing out the entire back end of this chapter. It will become chapter 30. I'll continue with it, but I'm completely diverging now. I have almost nothing in the book written about this, but it's so important and it's been bothering me for so long. It's time to do this right now. So for the example, let's back up to the absolute beginning. We'll use the invasion of Normandy, World War II, as our example. Utah Beach, Omaha Beach. Most people listening to me have seen the opening scene in Saving Private Ryan. That will be our example of the Not Nilk. Basically, someone is killed against their will. So say a 20-year-old jumps off the boat, and within 20 seconds at Utah Beach in Normandy is immediately mowed down by a German machine gun. Right? There is no, the Not Nilk, the point of this is not operating behind a trick. Let's see if we can establish that. The Not Nilk caused the death of that soldier storming the Normandy beach, and it did not operate behind a trick. It seems like that's a violation, does it not? It always seems to operate behind a trick, but we'll get into different scenarios. This incarnation that we are now part of the deal before coming in here, it might need to play a trick on us. We may be different than the person that jumped off the boat at Normandy or Omaha Beach. We'll talk about all of these different possibilities if you give me enough time. The point now is very simple. There was no trick involved when the soldier died at Utah Beach in Normandy. Now, if anybody, I have to address all possible objections. I hope no one's saying that, Matt, the 20-year-old didn't have to go to war. Come on. Come on, really? The 20-year-old is supposed to see through reality, understand a little bit about what we understand, not believe that there is this German menace that's taking over all of Europe. The 20-year-old is supposed to see through that trick and is supposed to say, I don't care if I'm drafted. I'd rather go to jail than go fight. The 20-year-old, it's a kid. They're not expected to see through the not milk trick. The not milk, when it sent the 20-year-old off to die at Normandy, did not operate behind a trick. Let's establish that. I hope nobody's trying to say that. Now, this sort of situation, I think, makes the most sense from Tony, the Tony that gives me very interesting advice about his relationship with his higher self. It makes the most sense if reality works the way Tony has described it. Via Matt, he said, you, the people that listen, Tony would say, you are simultaneous incarnations of higher self, where you are playing your life out. The needle of consciousness drops on the record, but there's also, I don't know how many he would say, 100 others, 1,000 others, I'm not sure, playing out simultaneously at the same time. From your perspective, the other incarnation of higher self is in a different time period, for example, but time is just an illusion. From the higher self's perspective, they're all going on at the same time. So if this, just go with it. If this model you believe is in any way correct, we'll talk about the Christian model and some other things before we're done here. I'll try to give equal representation or represent each side the best that I can. So this is similar to those that believe in reincarnation, or we've done this before, although from this perspective, they're all going on at the same time. From your perspective, another incarnation was in the past. It's all perception. Time doesn't exist anyway, so what does it matter? So for any of us that have this sort of philosophy, or anything similar, even a reincarnation philosophy, you would say, well, other versions of me, if this is your belief, died horrible deaths in the past in a lot of different ways, likely, crushed by whatever in the 1600s by a catapult, or in a war with France, or just died out in the fields, or whatever it may be, there with Braveheart at Stirling, not always a battle. Someone say, Matt, yeah, I believe we've done this before. And there's probably been other incarnations of me that died horrible deaths. But see, potentially the incarnation that's ready to graduate, that's ready to get all aspects of itself out of here permanently, to never do this again, that final incarnation potentially, that maybe the not milk needs to operate behind a trick for it, or to overcome it, or to beat it, where it's like, okay, we have an incarnation, maybe this one called Matt, or whoever's listening to me, or Violet, or whatever. We have an incarnation that's ready to win, for lack of better words. And for that incarnation, the not milk potentially is forced to operate behind a trick. If the not milk can trick this potential final incarnation into playing its game and not doing what it's supposed to do for its higher self, and not do part two of the work, and focus on its screen and its Tartaria and whatever, and not do the worry about yourself activities, then this incarnation then won't allow higher self to, quote, exit this game, or to get all aspects of itself out of here. Maybe that is a rule per our type of incarnation. You see what I'm saying? Tony would say the higher self learns from all different incarnations. If there was a soldier in 1400, which is happening simultaneously to you right now, that died on a battlefield, or was crushed by a rock, doing whatever, just climbing or sharecropping or whatever it may be, died a horrible death, Tony would clearly say to me, the higher self learned from that, as horrible as it may be to the entity that's getting abused, or the entity that died the horrible death. The higher self learned from that. From your higher self's perspective, it's like, well, something really horrible happened in a dream to your dream self. When you wake up in the morning, are you so traumatized by that? No, you're like, that's my dream self. Do you even care once you wake up and go to brush your teeth? That, okay, you die in the dream, you kind of wake up, whatever. Let's forget about all that. I've been chased by dogs in my dreams, where the dogs are biting into me as I'm running, and all sorts of horrible stuff. My cousin said to me years ago, we were sharing that rent in San Francisco. He said, if I was you, I'd never go to sleep. I haven't had these horrible dreams at all compared to what I had back, I don't know, maybe you could say when I was in the Matrix or working for the big insurance company or we're sharing the rent in San Francisco. The dreams now, they can be very weird, but not that horrific, which is very interesting. We'll talk about, or I'll explore that sometime. Maybe there's something to that. So I guess I'm in summary, but we certainly don't have conclusions yet. For those that believe in reincarnation, or in any sense, it's not just Buddhism or other religion. If you any sense you've done this before, or any sense you buy into the explanation of higher self, the spiritual part of you that's not here, and there's a lot of views running around in different reality systems or different time periods, many would say, well, not every single incarnation the not milk's trying to trick. I mean, if we've done this before, we've all died some horrible deaths over that. I mean, that's just the way this material plane of reality works. So, but was that the role of those incarnations for higher self, where we seem to be? I don't like using certain terminology. It does appear arrogant. I don't know any other way to say it. We've seen through so much of reality's presentation that we are this incarnation, at least from Tony's perspective, of simultaneous higher self. We are the incarnation that can get all of us out of here. Do you think there's another version of you that sees through even more of the trick than you do if they're in this Earth or a similar material reality system? I mean, it's not going out on a limb to say if again, those that believe we've done this before, it's happening now, reincarnation, we are the incarnation that sees through more than any of the others. Okay, there's no question. I can't say there's no question, but it's likely, right? If I was some sharecropper working outside the sheriff of Nottingham's walls 400 years ago, I probably didn't know shit about shit. Okay, maybe that was the purpose of that incarnation. But maybe the purpose of our incarnation, maybe it's a contract, a rule, a game. The not milk must operate behind a trick. Or you win, I win. If it breaks the rules in any way on us in terms of operating behind a trick, then we win automatically, win everything. Okay, why? Because I said so. I mean, it just feels that way. Maybe it's not as simple as saying I said so, but it does feel that way. So someone might say to me, Matt, you're trying to compare your incarnation, and we're all potentially at different levels via the incarnation of the person that jumped off the boat at Omaha Beach. Matt, that could be actually another version of you or an aspect of your higher self. That was not the purposes of that incarnation's purpose for its higher self, or the part of them that's not here, was not to see through the trick, was to have the horrible experience. The not milk, someone might say, doesn't need to operate behind a trick for that type of incarnation. I don't know, guys. Some of these things just kind of coming to me, certain ideas. I don't know if you're going to think this is absolute horse shit. I don't know what you'll say about this, but what am I going to not? It might sound bad. I don't know. I'm throw a bunch of shit out. Guess what? There's a lot of smart people here that not just comments, people that email me will resolve it and get closer over time. So if it's a lot of horse shit now, well, that's okay. It'll get better. This example that we draw about my incarnation, Matt, or this, whoever got off the beach at Utah and Omaha Beach, this does present a little bit of a problem from a Christian perspective. I'm not here to run anybody down. I'm just being honest. It creates a problem. I'll look to your comments. There are a lot of Christians here. So most Christians believe in, I can't speak for you. I'll do the best I can. I apologize. More of a one and done, right? Not this simultaneous reincarnation, different versions of us running around. That's not very Christian, obviously. I think I'm getting the basics right. More of a one and done. Okay, so the 20-year-old that is mowed down at Utah Beach in World War II, okay? What happens? So they were supposed to completely accept Jesus Christ and the Christian God by age 19 or 20. I know that a lot of Christians would say that the children are given a break. The children automatically go to heaven. My grandmother used to talk to me about that sort of thing. But is a 21-year-old or 20, did they get that child's break? Or how are they supposed to really know and give themselves fully over to the religion at age 19, 20, 21, or 22? So that they get the young child's free pass? See how this is potentially an issue? That's it. They 20 years old, go off to heaven for eternity. It doesn't, I'm sorry. It just doesn't sit right. There's got to be more to it than that. That's why it more resonates with me, Tony's explanations. where he talks about your higher self will have experiences or incarnations in these reality systems as long as it needs to. In some sense, he's said the higher self can get us out of here and has the authority and is very, very powerful. In other sense, he's like, it can't unless the incarnations do a certain thing or provide it with certain experiences or information. He's been a little back and forth on that, and he hasn't contacted me in a while, but whatever. He's been a big contributor, over the many, many years, and we'll work it out on our own. At this point, honestly, it all doesn't matter. We still are going to do the same part to the work. Whatever we believe we're here to do, we're going to get on with doing it. And we're not going to fall for the trick. So does it really matter if we figure all this out? No, as usual, it doesn't matter. All that matters is continue to do the part two and the worry about yourself activities. But this is a very interesting conversation, and I've never been able to reconcile it. And as we're going through it, or I'm going through it, and your comments will help me, I'm definitely getting a little bit farther in terms of being a little bit more at ease and understanding why my incarnation might be different than the 20-year-old jumping off the boat at Utah Beach, and why the not milk is more forced to operate behind a trick in dealing with me. Okay? If it stops operating behind a trick in dealing with me, I'll let you know, or the channel will go quiet. But if that's the case, not milk, I win. I win it all if you violate the rules. Why? Because you violated the rules, and I said so. I don't want you to violate the rules. There seems to be rules here, okay? But I don't think it is going to break the rules of operating behind a trick in dealing with an entity like me and you. That's what my intuition tells me. Again, just thinking for a few more minutes, what Tony presents really does resonate with me, the spiritual part of me that is not here. I am to it what the dream character is to me, for example, or everything is a fractal. That higher self could be a fractal of something much larger, which eventually, as anybody screaming out, I can hear you, leads to ultimate source or the original God or whatever you may believe it to be. That makes more sense to me in terms of how we live our lives than a Christian perspective of one and done. What is the Christian perspective of one and done on, I don't know, an 18-year-old young, sacrificed by Aztecs, Mayas and the Mayas and the Aztecs sacrificed to their gods, a virgin, for example. What's the Christian perspective on that? I mean, does the virgin sacrifice go to heaven, or what about before Jesus? There's issues that maybe they all can be resolved. And then we've talked about before, maybe Jesus is your way out. It might not be my way. Why does it have to be one size fits all? Jesus could be here for a certain type of incarnation for you to follow, and that's your way out. Why does that have to be my way out? Why does it have to be one size fits all? Go up to Burger King, and Greg and I watched the other day, the day they fooled these guys into thinking they don't sell the Whopper anymore. They said, we don't sell the Whopper anymore. What the? And they went on. I know it's all staged. It's funny as shit. The day they took the Whopper away, they freaked the F out. It's funny, but it's staged. But it's okay. What if when you went through the drive-thru and we got Whopper, that's it? We ain't got fries, curly fries. We ain't got nothing else, not even a drink. We got Whopper. One thing. Why does one religion have to fit all? If Jesus is your way out, why does that have to be my way out? Where does it say that? That's okay. I can't. Maybe I've gone a little bit too far in speaking for you, and I will look to your comments. I appreciate the big thinking Christians that are still here because a lot of what I say does not conform with their beliefs. But like I've said many times, ultimately we are in the same anti-not-milk foxhole together, and we have more in common. At least while we're alive in this reality system, we have more in common than we have disagreements. So to wrap this up, just going back to the original example used, which was what's happening in the Gaza Strip. I'm sure some apartment somewhere is blowing up in the Gaza Strip today. But it's a news story. All right. So are there incarnations in the Gaza Strip that are similar to you and me? That incarnation that is very close to doing enough worry about yourself activities, part 2, seeing through the trick, and is, the natural law of it, I don't know how to describe it, being violated by not allowing certain incarnations in Gaza to do the part 2, the worry about yourself activities, as one leaves behind the study of all the ridiculous breadcrumbs it throws down in the conspiracy world from the screen. Are there violations happening there? At some point, well, Matt, what if it doesn't kill the person, but their apartment building just blows up, but then they have to live in a tent? I think that is a violation. That's the not milk has gone too far, way too far. That is a violation of somebody. If their job as that incarnation was to do the part 2, the self-work, the worry about yourself activities, if their apartment building blowed up and they're on the street in a tent or something, waiting for the truck to come around in the morning for a little soup, that is a violation of them to do the not milk in that case has gone too far. And all those people hopefully get instant wins, or maybe we should just declare it right now because we said so, that they get instant wins. Whatever that means. I don't have to know exactly what that means. In terms of its need to operate behind a trick, we have a lot of examples where it does seem like the not milk, for who knows how long, has gone too far. Don't you just get that sense that whatever contractual rules may exist or have existed in terms of its role here, it's a role player as a collective, and its individual minions are role players, that it has broken the rules? It seems like it has overstepped. It just has. I remember talking about this a bit in either the last conversation before we were born or the first conversation after a, quote, failed lifetime. And Tony doesn't like that. I mean, there is, to the higher self's perspective, Tony would say, there really is no failed lifetimes. The higher self can learn from anything. I don't like to believe that the higher self can learn from me and a drug dealer that it has in Haight-Ashbury up in the San Francisco in the late 60s or something. I don't like to believe that the higher self can learn from that and learn from that. Puts me not on equal footing with that sort of incarnation, but in the same ballpark. I don't like to hear that at all. But Tony would say, the higher self can learn from anything. So regarding Gaza, I can only assume it's just like here in terms of there's real spiritual beings at our level. I don't know how to talk about it. There may be NPCs there. There's young souls. I don't think it would be any different just because of its geography. I think there are real beings there that are seeing through a lot of the same things that we see through. And it seems like in that situation that the not milk has, again, broken its contract, overstepped. It seems it oversteps a lot. If anybody's new here, and some of this may be hard to follow, but the old guard that's listening, our goal here is basically the same. I mean, first off, nobody listening to this, anywhere even close to old guard, believes that death is the end of existence. I mean, that nobody believes that. It's just we have differing opinions, but to be the end, I mean, that's just the atheist position. I mean, nobody here believes that. It's really ridiculous at this point. So our goal, most people here, our goal is pretty much the same. Unless there's a lot of Christians here, we'll just say the non-Christian group, to as something that will continue to go on. A spiritual being isn't limited to this little life or this little existence. To do what we need to do here. The big problem comes because we'll never have the standard to know if we've done enough. It's not like I used to wear a little plastic wristband. If you got 10,000 steps, it would vibrate. It would vibrate. Oh, I got my 10,000 steps or whatever. I can go home and I have to walk around the mall. I've been to this damn lid store 1,000 times, little hats. I can go home. We don't know if we've done enough. So at least I can speak for most of you. We strive to do much more. We want that 20%, 30, 40% buffer. We know this existence, this reality is here for a reason. Of course it is. We don't believe it's hijacked and we're stuck and there's no way out and Cush and Avery, and that's from Jerry Maguire. Some people here believe that. Most of us don't. But so we will do more because we don't know that level. The damn wristband's not going to beep and vibrate. Spiritual being known as Matt, your higher self, incarnation number 5. I'm not going to give a number because somebody will try to write down and get the gematria. Oh, he's giving a code to his secret society buddies. Not even going to give a real number. They go, Matt's giving some gematria. Can't do it. That's how there's some weird people that are listening here, and they'll go after the trolls. You're not going to get a message that you, incarnation Matt, you've done enough. Me? You can put your feet up and Subway sandwiches will be served just magically at your door. You don't have to do it. We don't know. We continue but here's the thing. It's anybody screaming at me, I can hear you. Matt, don't ever put into someone's head that there is a line or a metric. It's you decide everything here. Don't ever even hint that it's like a wristband for steps at the mall with the lid store. That you will decide if you've done enough because you or the greater you decide everything. That's the manifestation of taking what you need to take into death. Karma is created by you. There is no thing outside of you called karma that just hangs in the shadows and you run from it. What's the cartoon? There's a rainy cloud that follows somebody around, or maybe the way that dust cloud follows Pigpen in the damn Peanuts or whatever. That karma, no, you created it. You can then get rid of it. Why? Because you said so. There is no so when we say we need to do enough in this incarnation, not that it's not like, oh, we're hoping. No, it's to do enough where you've had like a hard day of work. With me, it's chopping wood, where I know that night that, boy, did I put in some exercise, completely satisfied. Not that I was trying to get exercise, but, knowing I can kind of eat whatever I want because I've been out all day chopping wood. I can have 2 meatball subs from Wawa and knowing I don't have to work out with weights for a few days because I did so much. And you just know, and that it's that feeling, or that not that you're just hoping you to go into the moment of death and be like, okay, not that I couldn't do anything more, because it's natural to be fooled. We were fooled in our teens, right? I was fooled in my 20s. And then in 1996, I went off to work for the big insurance company. They sent me out to Los Angeles, and I was running the rat race. What kind of car can I lease? Yeah, we were fooled. So it's not like we can't say, well, did we do everything we possibly could have? Well, per the rules here, or what is it to be expected? It's expected to be fooled in your 20s and even most of our 30s. So once we come out of it, have we done enough? And then that there is no metric that's outside of our own setting of that metric. That is the most important takeaway, in my opinion, of this entire reality system. That has nothing to do from a Christian perspective. That is completely foreign. I hear you. But the 20-year-old that died at Utah Beach at Normandy, or somebody in Gaza last week, whatever happened to their apartment building where the Israeli F-16s came in, did they even get the chance to do any of the sort of understanding or part 2, the work, or the worry about yourself stuff? Did they even get the chance? And maybe this is as far as we can take this reconciliation. To me, it's simple right now, and maybe Matt, you just will, because you can't have a further understanding. You oversimplify. I don't think so. I think the simple is always the real answer. I don't think I go back to the simple because I just can't comprehend and I'm desperate for an answer. I don't think that's it. But think whatever you want. The person at Utah Beach or in Gaza, first off, if the not milk broke the rules, they win. Okay, whatever that means. 2. That it might not have been the incarnation that was supposed to do part 2, the work, that was supposed to do the worry about yourself activities or see through every aspect of the trick. I mean, hopefully the rules that exist here are if it's that type of incarnation, which is typically the people listening to this, that the not milk must be very careful to operate behind a trick and not go past that, like I alluded to. And if it does, we win. Why? Because I said so. Thanks for listening.